Hi there, welcome back. This is Professor Hank, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Python format function to change the way things look on your screen when you're printing output. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First, we're going to begin with the basics of calling the format function. Then we'll take a look at displaying floating point numbers. We'll take a look at displaying E notation. We'll look at percents. We'll look at integers. We'll look at displaying strings with the format function. Then I'll show you an example of changing decimal places of precision being displayed. Then I'll show you how to modify field width, make sure that everything's aligned nice and pretty. And then finally finish up by talking about justification within the fields. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over the basics for the format function. The format function is a built-in function similar to print, for example, and so it's available right from the get-go. There's no special imports that are needed. You want to use it, you just want to type format, and you got your parentheses. And the first argument is going to be what you want to format, and the second argument is going to be how you want it to be formatted. Okay, and so what happens is that this format function is going to return the modified version of your first argument, and then you can send that to a print function, for example, to display on the screen. Okay, so let us take a look at an of this guy. So for floating point numbers, for example, right? If we wanted to display a floating point number and we were going to format it in some way, then we could have as the first argument a number 1234.1234, right? So that first argument's what we want to format. And then the second argument is a formatting string, which we will use to specify how things should look, right? So we want to display a floating point number, right? So that's what the F is for. And I want to actually display this thing and the formatted version of it. So I'm going to send the results of that format function to print function, okay? So let's go ahead and run this, right? And so you can see there's a number 1234.123400. It's adding on an additional couple of zeros by default. Okay, now haven't changed the format in any way, but we will, right? I'll go through here and give you different examples. Okay, I just wanted to show you the basics of how to call it. Okay, now let's take a look at how we could change the way this output's going to look, right? So we can use E notation instead of decimal places, for example, right? So I can do something like this, right? So I could say print, format, and then 1234.1234, and instead of doing F for floating point notation, I can do E for E notation, right? And E notation is that scientific notation version of a floating point number. So if I go ahead and run this now, you can see, the E notation version, right? So this just basically means 1.234123 times 10 to the third power. Okay, so we can do that, and we can also pass to format a variable, right? So let's do that. So let's say that I wanted to have the number stored as a variable instead. Then I can pass that variable instead of a literal. Okay. So there you go. Okay, so what about showing percents then, right? Well, let's say that I wanted to display, like 53% or something like that. Okay. So I could format my percentage, and what this does is it converts the decimal representation of the percent into a percent, right? So let's say 0.54, right? And I wanted display that instead of as a decimal number, I want to display it as a percent, right? So inside this formatting string, I would do percent, right? So let's send the result of that to my print function and then display the result of that. Okay. Now default, it's filling out 6 digits worth, right? In the decimal places field, just like it did for floating point number. Okay. Now I might not want to display all those numbers, right? So let me give you a little preview here. Okay. Inside my formatting string, right before the percentage, I could type 0.0. Okay. And so that decimal place is going to help me to specify how many decimal places I actually want to show, how many decimal places of precision. Right? I'll give you more on this in a minute or two. Okay, so let's see how that changes. Right? So here, decimal place. This is how many decimal places I want to show after the decimal point. So 0. So now I get to see my 54%. Okay, so more on that in a second. Let's see here. I can also format integers, right? So I can do something like this. I can say 10,124, right? And so if I put D here, what I'm doing is I'm saying, well, I want to display this as an integer. And you can see the 10,124 down there, right? Now, I can, in addition to that, if I add to my format string a comma here, then what's going to happen is I'm going to have the values comma delimited, right? As you've done before, writing out numbers by hand or whatever. I got the 10,000 comma 124, right? So the format function supports that. Putting that comma in there is going to comma delimitate the output. Okay, so that's kind of nice. Okay, so we can also format strings. This will be more useful here in a second, but I'll just show you that you can do it. Let's see here. So I want to say hello, right? And in my format string, I'll just put S for string. Okay, so you see hello shows up there at the end. Fine. Okay, more on that in a sec. So precision. Okay, now when we talk about precision, when we're formatting output, we're talking about how many decimal places of precision we're going to have, right? Should we have 1 decimal place, 2 decimal place, 3 decimal place, 4 decimal place, etc. So let's say that I had a variable that was storing the price of something, price of a toy, okay, and that price was going to be $123.58 or something. Okay, so I might want to make sure that gets formatted to 2 decimal places, and so I would put as my second argument the period again, 2 for 2 decimal places, and then F for floating point number. Okay, and so if I run this, then you can see the output there is 123.58. Not the most exciting example in the world, but what happens if I put a couple extra decimal places here at the end? Okay, what am I going to see now? Let me rerun it. Okay, 123.58 still, even though these extra decimal places are here. Boom, they're not being displayed. The 8's getting rounded, right? It's the 2 rounds down, so the 8 doesn't change. Right, and also, even on the previous example, I only did 0.58. Got rid of all those extra zeros that would have showed up, right, like they did with the percent. Okay, so if I wanted to show 1 decimal place of precision, well, then just change this to 1, right? We run it again. Now I see 123.6. Why? Because the 5 got rounded up because of the 8. I want to see 4 decimal places of precision. Well, then just change it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's talk briefly about field width and how we can adjust that, okay? So when you print something, right, so let's say I'm going to print a couple different pieces of information. Let's say I print something like, or something like total number of points or something, right? I do that, and then afterwards I'm going to have another piece of information, okay, that I want to display. Okay, since there's two arguments here, right, I'm going to have two fields displayed on the screen, right? So each piece of information that we display, let me just shorten this down to total, or yeah, just to total. Okay, each argument that gets displayed is going to occupy a certain amount of space on the screen, right? And so each argument is going to occupy it's called a field, and we can adjust the formatting of this field, right? So we've got a default field size, which is typically going to be 8 characters, and that field by default will expand, get bigger if you have data that's too big to fit in there, right? But the default field sizes can cause things to look kind of gross, right? So let's say that I wanted to have numbers that added up, or that were arranged in a nice little table, right? Let's say that I wanted to arrange some values in, say, a 3-column table with 2 rows, right? Then I would want to format those fields. I'm going to end up with having 6 fields, and I'd want to format those fields to where things look nicer, right? So let me create some variables with values. Okay, so let's say a equals 12. 13435. I'm just gonna come up with these numbers off the top of my head. I'm just typing stuff at random here. C equals 1212.68. D equals 1900 point whatever. E equals 1235.99876, and F equals 44.234 or whatever. Okay, so what I want is I want these 3 numbers to be in the first row, and I want these 3 numbers to be in the second row, right? And I want these numbers to be spread out evenly, consistently. Okay, well, I can specify the field width to help me do that, right? So I'm going to go ahead and write 2 print functions here. Okay, and each print function is going to have 3 of those numbers, right? So the first print function will have A, B, and C, and the second print function will have D, E, and F. Okay, let's see what this looks like so far. The output. See, the numbers all look kind of gross. They're all kind of just on top of each other. They're not lined up or anything, and they're just separated by that default space. Okay, so let's format the output, change it to where things are lined up a little bit better, right? So how can we do that? Well, we'll use our format function, okay? And what we'll do is we'll say, all right, well, let's go ahead and inside of our format string, we're going to specify how wide we want each one of those fields to be. So I'll make it 15 by default here, okay? And we'll play with it. You know, we'll take a look and see what we need to do to adjust it. When you're putting together your output, sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error to make sure that you get everything looking the way you want it to. Okay, so let's do that. And here, I'll break this up onto multiple lines so you can actually see what's going on here. Okay, so we got that, and we'll do the same thing for D, E, F. Okay, so let's change this to D, let's change this to E, and let's change this to F. Okay, so each number on each row is going to have a field width now that's 15 characters. Okay, so let's see how that changes things. Oops, let's see here, what did I miss? Where did I miss? Oh, got to specify the type of number. My bad. Okay, it's floating point number. All right. Knew I forgot something. All right, so let's put that in there, and let's run it again. Okay. Why are you complaining? Oh, forgot my closing parentheses right there, and my closing parentheses right there. There we go. And let's try one more time. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so now we have got ourselves some columns and some rows that look a lot better, right? And we can see that by default it's lining those guys up by their decimal places, and so we got something that looks a lot neater, a lot prettier, right, than what we originally had. Okay, so let's modify this further, though, right? So right now, maybe I've decided, well, I don't want to show all these decimal places. Maybe that's too many. Maybe this was supposed to be money and this was supposed to be rounded off or something. So to do decimal places, well, then what do? Well, then I just go back and borrow from what we just looked at, right, with the point, you know, for the precision part, we did 0.4. Well, we'll just bring that down here too. We'll just say, okay, well, let's only show 2 decimal places of precision, and we'll do that for each one of these guys. Okay. And then let's see how that changes things. Okay. So let's run it. Ooh, right? Suddenly everything's cut down and it looks even, I don't know, cleaner, nicer than it just did. Right? So we can combine those guys to get whatever effects that we need to get, right? So what happens if we also want to have, you know, the commas in there, right? Can we do that? Can we combine that? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. Okay. Did I put it in the wrong place? All right. Yes, I did. There we go. So let's see here. Oh, we're not going to see anything for the 44, right? So I should probably try that with the E. So let's try this one more time. Let's put it on all of them. How about that? Even though some of them aren't going to need commas, we'll just put them all in there just to be uniform. Okay. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right, so now, there we go. So now we can see the commas appearing in the output, right? So we're just adding all these guys together, right? And getting a different look, getting a different feel. Everything's building right onto each other, okay? So last thing I want to talk to you about is justification, okay? So justification has to do with the alignment of the data within their individual fields, right? So let me show you the different options that you have. Okay, so let us say that I'm going to just print a couple numbers, one after the other. Okay, so I'll just make up a couple numbers here. So let's say 100 and 200. Okay, and I want to display those on the screen. Okay, but I want to have a bigger field. Okay, otherwise this is going to be kind of a boring example. Okay, so let's format that, and we're going to say, all right, well, I want this to be 10 characters wide, right? And this is an integer, so we're going to have that D there. Okay, let's close my parentheses, and then let's do format for the other guy over here. Okay. And close my parentheses. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. All right, so now we got the 100 and the 200 lined up. Okay, they're in their own fields. Now what you notice is that I made those fields 10 characters wide, right? So that's one field, and that's another one. By default, these numbers are going to be right justified, which means that they're going to start printing along the right edge of the field. Okay, so what if I want to make it left justified? What if I wanted to make them print from the left edge of the field? Well, then what I'll do is I'll add that symbol to the very, very beginning. Okay, and what that does is it says, okay, go ahead and left justify those numbers. Right, so now you can see that there's the field, number starts printing from the far left. Okay, so that's left justification. Okay, so let me just do this left. Here's the left version. Okay. Here is the default, which is right. Okay, and that's if we leave these guys out. Okay. So you can see them side by side. Okay. But we can also do center justification. Okay. And the way that's going to work is we're going to use this little caret here. Okay, let's run that and see how those guys all look next to each other. Okay, so there we got the default right justification. Here we got the left justification, and then here we got the center justification. Right, center justification is where the numbers start being printed in the middle of the field. Okay, great. So I think that's everything that I wanted to show you in this video. So format function, there's the basics of it. Showed you how to call it. Showed you how to display floating point numbers, showed you how to display strings, showed you how to display e-notation, percents, format to certain levels of precision, showed you how to do justification, right? So there you go, it should be good to go. Okay, so that's going to bring this video to a close. If you felt that the video was useful, please consider giving the video a thumbs up, and if you thought that the video sucked, well, then you've got that thumbs down button as an option as well. If you'd like to see more videos, if you're interested in more content from the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button. And as usual, if you're a student of mine and you have further questions, feel free to drop me an email or to stop by my office hours. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.